Okay, I'm going to get started, eh? Kia ora everyone, my name is Lee Timutimu. Heuri tēnei no Ngāti Awa, Ngai Te Rangi Tūhoi, me Ngāti Parau. I'm a Maori from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Arataki Systems. I'm just going to crack into this presentation, eh? So before we do, though, I just wanted to sort of just a bit of a caveat that although I've got a presentation, I brought together a couple of different presentations, so it might seem a bit hacky, but just enjoy the ride, I guess. I'm pretty much sort of free-flowing speaker, so I like to sort of just chat around the slides as well as what's on the slides, so you'll probably notice that, but yeah, I'm excited to be here participating in the Natives in Tech Conference today, and I extend much gratitude to Adam for inviting me to participate, so thank you. Okay, so a couple of things about me. Obviously, I'm a tech company owner. I founded the company, but I'm also a devoted father and husband. Those are two incredibly important responsibilities that I have, and that I try to maintain as best I can and balance with my business or businesses. So whānau or family is very incredibly important to me, I guess, as a human being, as a person, and certainly I guess that's something that is normal for us as Indigenous peoples. Family is incredibly important, so I just wanted to sort of lead with that. Obviously, these are my kids down the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. I really just wanted to quickly introduce you to my family and who they are, what they look like, and why family is so important to me. But just pressing on. So here in New Zealand, I come from a place called Whakatane. It's located, if you don't know where it is, it's located in a place called the Eastern Bay of Plenty, which is in the North Island. There's two main islands in New Zealand, North Island, South Island. Here in New Zealand, I was pretty much born and raised in this town. It's a population of about 36,000 people, so it's kind of a big town and it's kind of a small city. But the thing about this town is very densely populated in Maori, so very densely populated in our people. And so pretty much from the get-go, from the time I was born, I was raised and immersed in a Maori sort of cultural environment, if you like, whether that was within my family or whether that was in my schooling or whether that was just in the general community. So I guess with that, I've sort of been raised with a very strong sense of my cultural identity as a Māori. I'm not a native speaker, I'm not a fluent speaker yet, sort of conversational at best, but my Māoritanga or my Māori cultural identity is something that's incredibly important to me, and it sort of feeds into all of the work that I've done over the past 25 years, I guess, and I'll speak a little bit about that shortly. One other thing I wanted to touch on in terms of my, I guess, my upbringing in this place called Whakatane is that my family, we pretty much rolled in a lower socioeconomic sort of domain, if you like, and that's not uncommon for most Māori, and certainly, I guess, most, if I might say, most Indigenous people around the globe. So I come from a, I guess, poor background, but what we lacked in money, possessions, houses, cars, and whatnot, we made up for exceptionally well in terms of the love and support that my family gave me whilst I was growing up. And certainly that's something that I remember absolutely. Also, I was raised by my mum, so a single parent family, and I'm very grateful for that. She taught me a whole bunch of really good life skills around being a good human being, basically. And so, I'm very fortunate that I came from, although we didn't have much, a very supportive family and whānau. So, just moving on. So, at this point, I just want to try and describe the last 25 years of my life, sort of sort of concise and succinct into a couple of slides if I can. And so pretty much the last 25 years of my life has been dedicated to two things. One is IT or tech, more specifically the IT support services space. So one of the reasons why I think I'm pretty good at IT support, help desk, remote desktop support, whatever, is because I think I'm really good at communicating, really good at building relationships with people, really good at explaining technical jargon in layman's terms to your average person, right? And I think that's why I've been so successful in that space and why I've hung in there for so long. So I've been working on IT for probably about the last 18 years now. So that's kind of given me my tech base. Also in the last 10 years, I've been running a Maori storytelling collective. So there's two logos up on the screen there. Obviously, Arataki is our tech business, but the other one there, the other logo, represents a Maori storytelling collective that I founded 10 years ago and that we're still running to this very day. And I'll explain a little bit more about that storytelling collective in the next couple of slides, just by showing you some images of what it actually looks like in terms of that work. Firstly, though, if you weren't aware, the Maori culture is an oral tradition. And that's not uncommon again within the Indigenous realm, I guess. There's a number of Indigenous cultures where this is the case. Well, in our case, this is certainly something that is at the core of what we do in terms of conveying and transferring our stories and therefore our knowledge onto future generations orally through the oral tradition. And this is a great segue into this storytelling collective that I founded. Now, the interesting thing about Te Reo Wainini o Tua, which loosely translated means the sweet story of yesteryear, so very poetic, but it means exactly what it says. Interesting thing about this initiative is that it is delivered in 100% Te Reo Māori, so it's a full immersion storytelling events program that we run all around New Zealand. And as I mentioned, I've been running this initiative for the last 10 years. So, and with that, it's pretty much where I found my passion and my real foundation for our mode of storytelling. So when I say our, I'm talking about the Maori mode of storytelling and how important that is to us as a culture, and how important that is to us in terms of maintaining our cultural identity, our language, and our connection to our history, should I say, and also being able to connect with the current and also future generations through storytelling. So this is pretty much where I landed in terms of my work or my mahi in the storytelling space. And I'm just going to throw up a couple of images here that sort of represent what, or hopefully try and show you what this work is all about. So yes, our primary audience are our kids. We've got a bunch of really cool storytellers that are experts in their own right, whether that's through language advocacy and also stories, obviously storytelling themselves. They're really good storytellers, and we basically rock up to locations or venues, primarily libraries around New Zealand, which is a really good fit. And we tell stories, we share stories with our kids, as you'll see in these next couple of images. So yeah, again, this is pretty much where I discovered my passion for Māori storytelling, and I've sort of held on to that in the last sort of decade. Continued to run this initiative around New Zealand, still running this collective to this very day. So what motivated me? What prompted me to found this storytelling capability that I've just sort of shown you a couple of slides on? So what prompted me was 10 years ago, my wife's grandfather passed away. But in the weeks leading up to his death, he was sickly, so we knew he was going to pass at some time. But in the weeks leading up to his death, he started sharing a lot more stories about the land, or their land anyway, with my wife, and she was really excited about it. She's like, "Oh, this is awesome, amazing! You know, my grandfather's sharing all of these cool stories about that mountain over there and this channel over there, this water channel over here, etc., etc." So, and then he passed away, and then we were kind of sitting there at the funeral soon after we buried him, and we thought, well, that sucks. You know, that really sucks. I mean, there's so much story and so much knowledge and information that's literally passed away with our grandfather. So it kind of made us think, well, what are we going to do about this? So what I decided to do about it was basically found Te Reo Wani Neo Tour, and that is literally where I started my, I guess, my journey on this path to revitalising and reviving our old traditions through the collective, but also through the mahi, or the work that we do now within Arataki Systems with the cultural storytelling platform. So this, I guess this statement or this caption on the screen now pretty much sums up what got me into this space all those years ago. So as our kaumātua or our elders pass on, so do our stories. And you know what, this is not, this issue is not isolated obviously to us as Maori, it's happening everywhere. So if there was one statement that I could say that sort of led me to begin this journey, it's this statement. Yeah. So really just an insight into where I started, basically. If you're interested, that's the website. You can go check it out anytime you like. So, just coming back to the brands again. So essentially, Arataki Systems is pretty much the culmination or the combining or the synergizing of storytelling, which obviously I've just explained to you how I found my way onto that path and into that space, and technology. So it's really essentially smashing together these two worlds that are really important to me and that I've spent the last 25 years devoted to, storytelling and tech, bringing them together, and there you go, Arataki Systems was formed 3 years ago this month, by the way, so it's a bit of a milestone for us. We've been doing a lot of work over the past 3 years in terms of developing the platform itself. I actually don't know what's next. There's a little video here. I'm hoping the sound's going to come through. Message me if it doesn't, guys, or say something. I'm the CEO and founder of Arataki Cultural Trails. We have developed New Zealand's first proximity-based cultural content delivery platform. On a global scale, there's not enough Indigenous information available to non-Indigenous people. We came up with the digital method to be able to tell our stories. Because it is proximity based, we actually have to be physically at their location to unlock that information using things like GPS, geofencing, and also Bluetooth beacon technology to release content in your locations. We're at a point now where we're ready to scale up, which for us means spreading our networks around New Zealand so that you'll be able to use the Arataki app to consume or engage with literally hundreds of thousands of cultural sites around New Zealand. Okay, so if you didn't hear that, that's fine. You can always grab it afterwards when we post up the slides and the presentation. So that video was actually, that clip is actually a year and a half old. And so even at that time, we were trying to scale our content across the nation. We're still in that process. So it takes time. It takes time to build relationships that are behind being able to access all of this authentic story or authentic narrative that's sort of out there available within the realms of our various tribes here in New Zealand. It would be no different anywhere else, I would imagine. So relationships are really key, but we're still in the process of scaling content. What that means is more stories or more authentic stories available here at more locations around New Zealand. So that's one of the trajectories that we've been on for at least the last year and a half now. So we're still plugging away at it. So I'm just going to carry on with my presentation. Okay, so Arataki. Arataki is a Maori word. Sorry, that means to lead, to point out or to guide. It is also the name of a suburb in the current location that I reside in, a place called Tauranga, which is also in the Bay of Plenty, the Western Bay of Plenty in the North Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Beautiful place, coastal, sunny most of the time. And that picture there on the screen, that is our ancestral mountain, and his name is Maori. And that is literally where we began our journey in terms of our first virtual storytelling implementation, if you like, was at that mountain around the base of it. So it's a very significant place for us, not just in terms of my whakapapa or genealogy into this area, because I do affiliate to the tribes in this location and that have ownership over that mountain. So personally, I'm connected to that mountain through my tribe. But also, it was the place where we started our journey as a tech company, I guess. And that implementation is still out there to this very day, and it's still working. So you can, download the app, go out there, walk around, activate all of the story that's available for you, or for anyone for that matter, around the base of our mountain Maori. So just wanted to explain where the word arataki came from. It kind of lends itself to this whole concept of self-guiding, virtual, sort of hikoi or virtual walks, being able to wayfind people or to direct people to places of cultural significance and then sharing something with them. So that's why we chose the word arataki. Also, it's the name of a suburb here in Tauranga called Arataki that kind of geographically links us or connects us to the city because it is so significant in terms of where we started our journey. So that's that. Just a couple of bullet points on the story, our story. Founded in 2016, so as I mentioned, it's our third year this month. We're a Maori-owned tech company based in Tauranga here in New Zealand, as I mentioned. So the fact that we're 100% Maori-owned is something that I talk about all the time, and it's something that I'm really proud of, So all four co-owners are my family, and I have a slide later that sort of introduces them to you. But basically, 100% Indigenous-owned tech company, and that's something that that I hold very dear to my heart. Between us, we have career backgrounds in Māori storytelling, technology, and also iwi relations. Iwi is the word for tribe down here in New Zealand. We've developed a proximity-activated content delivery platform that allows you to unlock authentic cultural stories in location. Now, I'll explain how we do that technically, because it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. But essentially what we built is a cultural storytelling app that allows you to unlock authentic story at place. So we connect people with our culture at the right time in the right location, certainly here in New Zealand. So this is my family. There's only 3 of us on the slide. The 4th one obviously wasn't around at the time we took this picture. So on the left-hand side of the screen is Clayton Lowe. He's our Chief Technical Officer, CTO, also our first cousin, so we're closely related. He's been a full-stack developer for well over 10 years, maybe even 12 now, since he's been with us for sure. So he's been doing it for a little while, but he's also best mates with the guy on the right-hand side of me, which is actually my younger brother. So Denham Haruida is his name. He's our CIO, and he has a different surname because he took my mum's maiden name, basically. But we're bros. So and now the 4th co-owner is a guy called Timutimu. He's our first cousin as well. So we're all related. It's a family business. Fortunately, we get on really well, and the dynamics are pretty good. And we're quite lucky, to be honest, because family businesses don't always run so smoothly. But we're pretty lucky that we have a pretty good dynamic within our team. So that's our team there. And we all have various experience in tech, I guess you could say, having worked for different companies over the years in different realms for different things. So what is it? What is this thing that we built? More importantly, how does it work? So it's pretty straightforward for us techies, pretty straightforward stuff. And to be honest, a lot of the technology that we've built or developed that's integrated into our platform is not new. and there's probably a half a dozen similar sort of apps or platforms here in New Zealand currently. So that's not new, and actually around in terms of the global scene, probably it's technology that's been used everywhere, and it's nothing new. But what is different about what we do is the content, basically. So we actually share authentic cultural narrative at place, and that's the big thing that we do. That's our space. That's what we dominate at the moment in terms of proximity activated cultural narrative. Is here in New Zealand. That's our domain. So, and we've worked really hard to stay ahead of. There's a couple of other people that have sort of shown interest in moving into the space, but we've done a pretty good job at staying ahead. So basically, when you're within physical proximity of any of our sites where we have content available, notification will pop up, and that alert you to the fact that there are some virtual guides or virtual content at that location or nearby. Pretty straightforward. Explaining our term or our jargon, a guide is a collection, or what we call a collection, of culturally significant sites. And we also use Bluetooth beacon, QR, AR, and NFC. Not so much NFC, but all of those methods to unlock content in remote locations or coverage black spots. Obviously, where internet services are unavailable. So offline mode is something that we've spent a lot of time thinking about how we can manage that, particularly given the majority or most of our culturally significant sites here in Aotearoa, New Zealand are in remote areas, top of a mountain, a lake out in the middle of nowhere, or forest that's out the back blocks of some massive forestry block. So this was something that we knew we would have to tackle and come up with some solutions to. Honestly, I don't think we've quite got it because it really depends on the location and the environment and a whole bunch of other factors to determine what type of deployment or implementation that we would need to deploy in particular locations. But it's a really great start, and we've really managed to, hone our platform so that it's looking for multiple methods of activation, right? So, and it's really about just not putting all of our eggs into one basket, and just being open to multiple methods of activation, given our whole platform is all about that. It's all about being at a particular place or arriving at a particular place and being able to activate a piece of content that's linked directly to that location that you've just arrived at. So, Bluetooth was one way. We got around that. QR codes, they're ugly, but they work and they're simple, and they're still widely used in Asia. So they are very, they're just easy to use and they work, we actually built our own QR code generator. I'll carry on because I'm just waffling now. So that's basically how that works. Okay, so why might you want to use this app that we built? And this could be true for any location in the world, for that matter, where there is the opportunity to take back the narrative or the cultural or the indigenous narrative of that place or that location or that region, right? So we think that people might want to use this app that we've built to unlock and access location-specific cultural information unlock and access location-specific cultural information that is authentic, accurate, and credible. Learn about culturally significant sites and points of interest at place. I think that's pretty important. These virtual self-guided walks that we create actually require you to get outdoors and be active, fit, and healthy. Now, just take a micro pause on the health side of things. Now, much like many Indigenous peoples around the world, we are at the wrong end of all the wrong statistics. We're like at the high end of all the wrong statistics, and health is one of those statistics, right? So we feel that this thing that we've created, which actually you have to go out to a place to be able to activate that story that's available, what actually gets people out of home. It gets them walking, it gets them running, it gets them away from their computers, and it gets them away from the television and all that kind of thing. So actually, one of the, I guess, health benefits or the hauora benefits, we would say, is the fact that we're actually creating this movement where people have to go out there and sort of discover this content that we've got available. But you've got to get off your butt to do that, right? So I think there's something within that. There's some health benefits. And also, because it's tech, the platform allows you the flexibility and accessibility to consume cultural content in your own time, at your own pace, 24/7. Obviously, that's what tech enables us to do, and it enables us to do that at scale, right? So one thing that I will say on that last bullet point is one of the things that we sort of discovered over time, probably in the first 12 months, was this. We've got a number of knowledge experts here, and if we're just talking about Tauranga, where I am now, and they're all old people. They're all our elders, basically. And these elders, there's probably about a half a dozen that I know of, are still taking groups of our people up to that mountain that I showed you, walking up the mountain very slowly, of course, walking up the mountain and sharing story with our people all the way along that journey, all the way along that path up to wherever they end up. So that's awesome, that's amazing, but that's also a burden on our old people. That's also them taking time out of their day to share that information and knowledge with our peoples, and that's an amazing thing. But what if we could create something technical or an app that sort of removed some of that onus and some of that responsibility and burden off of our old people, so that they don't have to do that as much as they do now. Now, there's nothing quite like having a real person tell you a story about a real place. And on that, our intention and our goal is never to replace our people. We will never replace physical storytellers, and we don't intend to. However, we do want to provide a technological sort of platform that enables people to do that in their own time, therefore removing these burdens off these people in our communities that are the knowledge experts and that are our elders. So that provides them with a bit of a break, to be honest. Also, the other thing with this is that sometimes within Māoridom, there's a little bit of what we call whakamā, or a little bit of shame in wanting to find out a little bit more about these culturally significant sites, whether it's going to find the person that knows the knowledge and approaching them to ask about the stories, or whether it's just going to our marae, or places that we gather as tribes and sub-tribes. But there's a little bit of fear, I guess, around people wanting to connect with these cultural stories, right? So we see tech as being a really simple way, but effective way of removing that challenge, or removing that barrier of whakamā, or of shame or embarrassment, and enabling and empowering people to go out there in their own time and using our tech to do that. So just a couple of points on those things that we've discovered over I guess the first part of our journey, in the first sort of 12 to 18 months. I'm going to keep moving. All right, so before I talk to the slide, so we're, as tech companies, tech owners, and I say this with my Western sort of Western capitalist sort of business hat on, in terms of when, as tech startup founders or as tech startups, we are always encouraged by the Western world to identify a problem before we start building a solution, right? So we've all been there. Well, the funny thing about our journey, especially with what we've built now in terms of Arataki Cultural Trails and that platform itself, is we didn't have a problem. We just wanted to build a cool storytelling app, because obviously story was important to me. And it's important to our people, but that's literally where our vision began. Let's just build a cool storytelling app. Oh, actually, my vision began was exactly that. Let's just build a cool storytelling app. But we hadn't actually thought about what problems we might be solving in developing such a product or such a platform. So over time, obviously, had the luxury of time to come up with a couple of points, or a couple of problems that we think we can help solve here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and eventually the globe. So a lack of cultural awareness in our communities. Again, these are problems that we've identified that our product or our platform addresses and solves to some degree a lack of engaging in authentic cultural content, integrity of cultural content and information. Now, this one is pretty important, actually. So integrity equals authenticity equals mana in our language, mana being, integrity or life force or power or, prestige. So I think that's very important, especially with all of the content that's available out there nowadays, as we all know. Obviously, the availability of cultural content and information, we think we're helping provide a little bit more of that. This one's probably resonates more with us as Maori. So for us, and given whenua or land is integral to who we are as Indigenous people, we feel that our platform can go some way to addressing this particular problem for Maori, but also potentially for all Indigenous peoples. Loss of cultural identity and connection to place. Again, talked about land, talked about the importance of connection to land, talking about the importance of connection to story, to histories, to the past, to our ancestors. But land is one of those physical markers that will be here long after we've gone. So I feel like what we've built is helping to sort of reconnect people to their land, and I guess in simple terms. So anyway, there it is. That's what we've come up with. These are the problems that we think we can help solve with the Arataki platform. I'm just going to chuck this up on the screen, guys. I mean, you can read it later if you like. But the point here with this is that over the last 3 years, we've kind of realised that there are other, I guess, applications for this platform that we've built, and so we've cracked out, I think, 3 apps in terms of the product suite itself. All live on the same platform, of course, and I guess that just really shows to us that there's a real demand for the work that we're doing and for the platform that we've developed, but in different spaces, which is really interesting. And I think organically that interest and demand has just grown over time. Well, it has actually, so there's no doubt about it. And that's incredibly exciting, and it's also incredibly validating in terms of the mahi all the work that we've been doing in the last 3 years. The challenge is, though, is trying to keep up with that demand. So there's, as you know, there's only 3 of us, well, 4 of us, 3 of us active in the business. So we're still a pretty lean, mean, small outfit. So as the interest grows and our public profile and our brand grows, so do the complexity of the task, responsibilities, challenges, and then we've kind of got to balance all that out with having only 3 people. And then we've got all of this interest coming in through the various, as shown by the various apps that we've built. And there's a couple more that we're working on that I haven't chucked on that slide, so it's all happening, basically. Cool, 10 o'clock. So for those that are interested, and I'm sure there are some of you out there, so just a bit of a caveat, I'm not a programmer, so I don't build any of the back end or the front end for that matter. Do a little bit of web stuff in terms of the website and stuff like that, but that's pretty much Clayton and Denham that look after the platform itself, right? So I asked Clayton to give me a slide on our current tech stack for those that are interested, basically. So we run our platform on a serverless stack, and that came as a result of us attending, we use GCP, Google Cloud Platform. I sent the boys to Google Next, was the beginning of this year, I think, and one of the things that came out of that trip was that we needed to move to a serverless stack, which is cool. There you go. Google App Engine, running all our code, and we use a Laravel framework, and also for our business logic. Cloud SQL, obviously, and Angular and TypeScript. What our family of apps are built on. So there you go, that's the slide, that's the tech stack slide, but probably don't ask me any more than that, any more in depth than that, because I'm not the coder, so you can ask me anything else. Alright, I don't even know what's next. slide, to be honest, because I don't have a preview, so that's cool. I'll just wing it. All right, so our goal. So our goal is quite simple here in New Zealand, to bridge the cultural gap between communities. And the way that we think we're going to achieve that is by sharing cultural stories, or our cultural stories, with as many people as possible. So not just with our own people, but with all communities, non-Maori, Pākehā, Maori, Chinese, Japanese, Indian, whatever. This is what we are trying to do. We're trying to bridge those cultural gaps between all of the communities that we have here in New Zealand. Multicultural, definitely. And we're trying to share our stories at place with all communities. And I feel that the reason why we landed on this goal is because I feel that through that process, we'll be able to educate and inform people about these places that are incredibly important to us as Māori. We'll also be able to hopefully create some empathy around some of the challenges, particularly where land was taken, or where there were land battles as well. So I feel like if we are sharing these stories with all communities, it might just create that movement of empathy around all of these things that are really important to us, and just build that education base, because there's nothing like ignorance. Like, let's just ignore what happened at this place, and let's just not worry about it. And you guys get over it, right? Māori, get over it. Okay, so moving on. So our mission is, again, very simple. It's a pretty tall mountain, but we want to share 1 million stories, not just here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, obviously, but around the world. So it's a pretty lofty mountain, but we're up for the job. We're up for the challenge, so that's kind of where we're headed, right? So our mission is to share 1 million stories. Just quickly, this is not really relevant because it's contextual. Obviously, this is here in New Zealand, but this is just a snapshot of some of our customers. Yes, we are making a bit of money, and it's paying some of our bills, but these are just some of our customers, quite diverse customer base. This is probably the more important slide in terms of our partnerships. So these are some of our tribal relationships that we have here in New Zealand. Again, just giving you a bit of a look into who we work with down here in Aotearoa. Just a slide on our goals and aspirations. We want to scale up nationwide. I mentioned it at the beginning of this stream. Scale up nationwide, so more stories and more locations around New Zealand. So that we're on a mission to do that. We want to be the industry leader in the proximity tech space. Now, I'm not just talking about the Maori proximity tech space, I'm talking about the industry leader in New Zealand. So we want to be that company that people come to if they have any projects or any questions, queries, or challenges around proximity tech. We want to be that company eventually. Obviously, we want this Arataki app to be the first choice app for cultural storytelling here in New Zealand. We also have global aspirations. At the moment, we're currently working with a First Australians nation in South Australia. I'm bummed out that I missed Michaela's talk earlier, but I have heard about her work and I just haven't got around to meeting her yet. So, and I'm really looking forward to that. But basically, we're working with a Aboriginal nation in South Australia called Ngaringiri. We've been working with them for probably about the last 18 months, and essentially they are going to use a white label version of our platform to maintain and share their stories on their lands in South Australia, at least where their land boundaries are located. So that's basically kind of gives you an idea of how we think we might be able to share what we've built with our potential global Indigenous partners. Is basically just white label platform, and we'll help to support and maintain that platform. You'll use it and you'll use it exactly how we use it here currently in New Zealand. But here's the interesting thing though, we've put some time into thinking about there has to be an end point for us. There has to be a point where we hand over the keys, as it were, to you as our Indigenous partner, and you take this platform into the future to look after your stories. And so we've already put some thinking around how we're going to do that. And do you think any other, can you think of any other Western tech company that would actually bother to think about something like that? Because this is important to us, right? These stories that are yours are your treasures. That's how we look at them. We don't look at them as data. We look at them as taonga or treasure. And we're supporting you to take back your cultural narrative at place because that's what we want to do. We're very committed to supporting and helping our Indigenous I guess, brothers and sisters around the world. This is one way that we can do that, but there has to be a point where we jump ship and you carry on. We'll support you for as long as we need to, or for as long as you need us to, and then we'll just, So anyway, just something that we've sort of put some thought into because it's important to us. Just a bit of an insight into why one of my drivers, at least in terms of the mahi that I do. I was quoted as saying this in our national carrier in-flight magazine at the start of the year. My primary motivation is to play a small role in the retention of our cultural stories, histories, and narrative to share with future generations. Now, this is pretty much what my why, in a nutshell. That's it. And I've said it, and I'll say it now. So this is what drives me in all of the mahi that we do within Arataki systems and also within Te Reo Wainini o Tua and also within other, community-based initiatives that I have am a part of currently. Okay, so this slide I took together last night. So basically there's a couple of key, components or key there's a couple of key components that I feel are that we focus on in terms of the work that we're doing with this, authentic cultural storytelling platform that we've built. So the first thing that I think we do is we help to collate the stories, right? So it's about getting out there, building relationships with our tribal organizations, but also with non-Indigenous people or Pākehā as well. So that's councils, central government, corporates, enterprise, whatever. So we get out there and build relationships with multiple stakeholders and with the objective of being able to collate and access these stories that hopefully will eventually put onto the platform and share on behalf of the content owner, which are basically iwi tribes, right? So we're out there collating all of this content. Then it's up to us to retain that using whatever means or methods that are available to us. Obviously, Google Cloud is the chosen infrastructure at the moment. I'm going to chuck up the next point as well, which is maintain. So this whole retention and maintenance of the stories or the treasure is a really important part because that's going to enable us to then share it with future generations, right? So there's a whole bunch of conversation going on around data sovereignty at the moment, which is something that's really important to us as well. How do we be responsible caretakers, I guess you could say, of this treasure / data? What safety mechanisms, I guess, have we put in place in terms of being able to ensure that taonga is not compromised, that data is not compromised? I mean, there's a whole bunch of conversations that we could have some really solid discussion on, but essentially what I'm saying is retention and maintenance of the stories is an important part of the role we play as well. We use Google Cloud platform, but we will not be using Google Cloud platform forevermore. In fact, we already have decided that once we are in a position to be able to get off of Google and either jump on board an Indigenous-led, Indigenous-created infrastructure or platform, cloud platform, blockchain platform like Aho, for example, cool, we're going to do that. Or two, we build our own. Until that time comes, we're going to use the most cost-effective method available to us, and that's okay. But just letting you know that we have put some thought and some thought time into thinking about, is our content safe? Are our stories safe in the hands of all of these global cloud providers, whether it's AWS, Google, Azure, or whoever? So that's something that we're really mindful of, right? So we have every intention of jumping off of Google as soon as we can. And then the last one is, of course, the whole point of everything that we do with this platform is actually to share with future generations. So we digitize, we collate, we retain that story, and we maintain it and support it, obviously in its digital format, and then we can share it with anyone currently, but also more importantly with anyone in the future. I think that's kind of why I took that slide together. Hope that made sense. Far out. All right, so there's the two things that I think that are really important in terms of the importance of our mahi, the importance of our work, and this is one of them. To reclaim our narrative or our cultural narrative at place. So I think this is a really important part of the work that we're doing right now is we've created this platform to enable ourselves, to enable Maori to reclaim our narrative at place. And you know what? It's pretty rife here in New Zealand, and I'm sure it's the same around any country or location that has been colonised. So the aftermath of colonisation, one of the simple things that has happened, or one of the more common things that has happened, is the renaming of our culturally significant places, our locations, our mountains have been given these colonial tags, right? So I see the work that we're doing as being an important part in playing into reclaiming the narrative at those places that have been, marked by the colonial brush, if you like. So I'm really big on this. Like, I think we've created something that's going to enable Maori, but also other Indigenous peoples to take back their narrative. And I might as well plug Native Lands. I'm actually on the board of Native Land. So currently, and so I'm really looking forward to having listening to Victor's chat about what he's developed in terms of the Indigenous remapping of the world, basically. So I'm excited about that as well. But that's basically similar to what I'm saying here. And the last thing I wanted to mention is we are also playing an important part in the transfer of knowledge and stories to our future generations. And I've already mentioned it, but I think it's incredibly important, because if we're not doing this, if we're not downloading those stories from old koro or grandfather's brain before he passes away, then they're gone. But once we do, cool, let's put it somewhere, let's keep it safe, let's caretake it, let's support it, so that we can then, boom, pass it on to our kids, pass it on to their kids, and so on and so forth. So this is a really important cog in terms of the mahi that we're doing, is to transfer knowledge to our future generations. I think I'm always there, guys. All right, I've got a couple of slides left, but I did want to finish on this one here. Ko Maori Hangaro. I wanted to show this because this is another initiative that I founded and that I am currently involved in. Now, this one is all about creating, I guess, a movement, not a movement, but inspiring our kids here, our Maori kids here in New Zealand, into pathways in tech and innovation. And I feel like what we've created here in terms of this model might work anywhere else. And not to say that there isn't other things like this around the world, but hey, I want to share this with you because it's really something that's also dear to my heart, because it's not just about us guys now building all of this cool stuff and, awesome, amazing. But how's about we bring some of our rangatahi or our youth along with us? How's about we bring some of our kids that haven't been born yet? How's about we create pathways, opportunities, and put our successful Māori tech entrepreneurs in front of our youth and just show them the pathway, man. Like, connect them with people that they can see are themselves. I can see someone that looks like me, talks like me, and pretty much has the same background as me. So, you know what, damn, I can be that person too. So that's basically what Ko Maori Hangaro is all about. And I'm going to finish on the promo clip that we did for this initiative. We founded it last year here in Tauranga. And we're looking to scale this particular community initiative for our Māori youth around New Zealand into 9 different locations in 2020. So that's, we're going to go big and we're going to go hard. just to help our kids, you know. So anyway, just gonna fire up this video. So Maori Hangaro was an event that was focused on our youth, our rangatahi. We hope to inspire and motivate and ignite our youth into the tech and innovation space, basically. So we brought along 10 Maori tech entrepreneurs, most of them at the top of their game, and the hope is that if our youth are able to see Maori never being successful within the tech and innovation space, they can aspire to be successful as well.
So basically, we're just a crew of young creatives who are keen to make it in the world. At the same time, we wanted to figure out how we can do those sorts of things, but we're living with a bit of purpose and venting our creative energy. I went to bankruptcy school after I was a failed lawyer, failed politician, failed cook. I thought, I'm going to be an animator. Surely you can't fail animation. Surely.
I think that rangatahi Māori are the future of NZ. So as far as I'm concerned, the more people that are participating, the faster growing industry in New Zealand, the better. What we need to do now is work really, really hard to support them, know that they're valued and know that they have a place in the tech industry.
As Maori, I believe that innovation and collaboration is a part of who we are.
It's not something new. It's not something we go to school to do. It's something that's in our genetics. It's in our DNA. It's in our bones.
It's awesome to see how people start off from the bottom, you know, and work their way up. And it's neat to just see all these Maori, you know, striving for greatness, and you know that's what really motivates me in life. Yeah.
So I've taken a really crazy path to get where I am today. I've made heaps of mistakes, but I've always been committed to finding what my passion was. And I think when you do that, and you can unlock that, you can do something really meaningful for you, but also for very stuck users. You know, in a couple of decades' time, we're going to see a massive change in the nature of work in New Zealand. Jobs will be lost and change entirely. What we need is to ensure that we have creative thinkers. I can't think of a better place in the world to foster that creativity, that innovation, than in Aotearoa, starting with our rangatahi. We're going to lead the world.
So yeah, that's what it's all about, people. And I agree with the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. We are definitely going to lead the world. Indigenous people are going to lead the world. So just finishing on that. If you have any questions about it, just shoot me a chat or message or email, whatever. So finishing up. Blah, 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 blah. All right. So all of everything that I've spoken about, all of the slides, all of the mahi that we're doing, all of the relationship we build, all of the objectives that we have, everything that we do is pretty much to support how we affect intergenerational impact, right? So that's what it is in my mind, and our collective minds is what are we going to do to affect or create intergenerational impact. So it's not just about what's happening now. It's not just about what's happening in the next 50 years. It's about what's coming in the next 500 years, right? So how are we going to ensure that all of these stories are passed on to future generations? Sure, that's evident. But how are we going to pass on this entity that we've created, this platform that we've created, and pass it on to our people in the future so that they can keep doing that, you know? So for me, the sum total of everything that we're doing right now within Arataki Systems is to try and effect intergenerational impact. And I'll just leave it on that. I'll leave it with you there, right? Okay, so it's pretty much our last couple of slides, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. So you can download our app. It's probably not going to work where you are, but hey, just have a bit of a look at it if you like. Have a bit of a look at what it looks like and whatnot. So Google Play and App Store. And again, I just wanted to send my greetings and best wishes to the community that's connected at the moment, but also again, thank Adam for the invite. Also, really great to see my peer and great mate Ben online today as well. We're super connected here in New Zealand in terms of our Maori tech ecosystem. We know each other, and it's a really important thing, and it's incredibly important to have those connections and collaborate and partner up and support each other, and we do that just naturally. So, and this is something that non-Indigenous people are just figuring out now. You know, they're figuring out the value in collaboration, the value in connection, the value in relationships. I mean, it's taken them a while, but hey, they've caught up. So, but we just do this naturally, and it's something that I'm really proud to be a part of the Māori tech community here in New Zealand. It's alive, it's vibrant, and it's a wonderful space to be in. But I'm also incredibly proud to be a part of the Indigenous tech community, and however we can support any of our brothers and sisters around the world to do anything that they're doing. You only need to reach out to us, give me an email, whatever, get in touch, and we will support you however we can. Nō reira, hingai tēnā kōrero, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, which basically means thank you, one and all. Kia ora, thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for one question, because Ben will be speaking soon. But someone in the chat had a question, and they said, with New Zealand's attempts to brand itself internationally as a digital country, are Maori included, supported in this endeavor? In other words, do they have a seat at the tech table, or is there further erasure of Maori identity, technology, knowledge, etc.?
That's a really excellent question. I think that's something that we all can think on, to be honest. But here in New Zealand, the state at the moment is there is I think they call it the IT Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, and there's about, I think there's 8 or 9 on that panel, and one of them is Māori, and we know him really well. And he's a great guy. He's been he's one of our Māori, tech OG entrepreneurs. He's been around for a couple of decades, and his name is Potawa Biasni Tule, and he is based in Rotorua, which is just up the road from where I stay now, where I live now. But yes, we do have some representation, but in saying that, I don't think we have enough representation. So, and that's where, and I guess that's where it's important, where we sort of, the community that we have in terms of Māori tech and innovation community, it's very strong, as I mentioned, but it's important for us to create those opportunities ourselves. So it's important for us to be able to create a community that's strong in itself, that can go out and support and have a voice, take part in what's happening around the globe in terms of the Indigenous tech space. And so we just do that ourselves, because we can't wait for the government to do that for us, right? It's just not going to happen, unfortunately. We've seen that too many times before. But so I guess the answer is there is some representation, but I don't think there's enough. I will mention another one of our Māori tech peers. His name is Nikora Ngaropo, amazing guy, doing some amazing stuff in terms of developing and providing workshops to basically create or to train our kids, our Māori kids, to become animators. So that's pretty much part of his work he's done. But he's just been named as the only Māori to be on the ASEAN Asia 21 Young Leaders committee, which is massive, because that's Asia Pacific, man. That's massive. So, and he's in San Francisco right now as a part of that committee, doing his do, and we're really proud of him, because he's managed to do that in a short span of time. But he's basically put himself into a position that will now give us a voice and a voice at the table in terms of Asia Pacific or in terms of ASEAN. So that's significant for us all. Anyway, that's my answer.
Thank you. Great presentation. And we're going to pause the live stream now and prepare for Ben to speak next.